In this video, I want to explain why I've just cancelled my Spotify Premium subscription. And boy, has this video been a long time coming. So I've been a paid up member of the Swedish streaming service since 2015. And I'm definitely going to miss Spotify Connect's extensive hardware support. So if a hi-fi product offers network streaming, it usually supports Spotify Connect. And Connect services like this are preferable to AirPlay because they don't drag the stream through the phone on the way to the hi-fi product. And unlike Chromecast, Spotify streams are gapless. Spotify Connect streams, that is. Now, I'm also going to miss the speed with which new music is added to Spotify's library. So most major new releases make the jump just after midnight on a Friday morning. And the general sort of comprehensiveness of Spotify's library is only really rivaled in my experience by Apple Music. So Spotify often has music that's missing from other streaming services. However, in 2025, the time has come for me to say farewell. And the pressure to quit has been mounting, I think, for like 2 or 3 years already. And I'm now at a point where enough has become enough. And I've got to say that none of these reasons on their own are enough to quit Spotify for me, but together they form a picture of fairly strong dissatisfaction.
This episode is brought to you by Bowers Wilkins, makers of the PI8 True Wireless IEM. Click the link in the show notes for more information.
So the first reason that I'm quitting Spotify is that it still doesn't offer lossless streaming. Now, Spotify first announced lossless streaming in 2021, I think, and Billie Eilish and Phineas signed off on the proposition with a fairly high-profile video promo.
High quality audio means just more info. There's just things you will not hear if you don't have a good sound system.
And apparently, back then, lossless's arrival would be imminent. But since then, Spotify has failed to turn on the lossless audio tap. And for 4 years, we've been subjected to a steady trickle of any day now rumour articles. And also we've had the occasional coming soon update from CEO Daniel Ek. And eventually Spotify removed that Billie Eilish and Phineas promo video. Now, at the time of making this video, Spotify's maximum streaming rate is 320 kilobits per second og vorbis. But many rivals, as we know, like Apple Music, Tidal, and Amazon Music offer lossless audio tiers where the studio masters have been untainted by psychoacoustic compression. Now, that compression is excellent, yes, but its shortcomings are evident to many experienced ears listening via decent playback hardware. I don't think the mainstream cares, but people like you and I think we care about the sound quality of the streams, and if nothing else, I think the presence of lossless audio eliminates doubt. Remember, in a previous video I've said a lot of what we do as audiophiles is about eliminating doubt. And also a lot of what we do is chase the very last few percent of audio performance. I guess that's sort of fundamental to the audiophile pursuit, right? We operate at the margins. So sat next to the competition, I think in terms of sound quality or lossless audio provision or both, Spotify comes up short. The second reason that I'm quitting Spotify is that Apple Music's Apple TV app is better looking. So one advantage of Spotify's Apple TV and TV app is that it can behave as a Spotify Connect endpoint. And yet, I find navigating Apple Music on an Apple TV with the Apple TV remote a much more relaxing experience. The Apple TV app, I think, is clean and it's uncluttered and it talks to minimalists like me. And you cannot say that about the Spotify app. Which brings us to the third reason I am quitting Spotify is its app clutter. Now, I realize that ongoing product development is necessary for any app developer, and Spotify has tweaked its app quite a bit in the last few years. So much so that music must now compete with podcasts and videos for our attention. And I suspect, but I cannot prove, that Spotify would rather we listen to podcasts because they attract no royalty fee. Now, hold that thought. The fourth reason I'm quitting Spotify is its royalty payments. Now, I think it's well known that Spotify pays around 1/3 of a cent per stream, and other services pay out slightly more, but not much more. So musician Ben Jordan, who records under the name The Flashbulb, but who now has a it's an excellent YouTube channel, he recently stated that he earns the most per stream from Qobuz. And I will have more to say about Qobuz at the very end of this video. But no matter which platform we are talking about, it's also well known that most musicians earn a pittance from streaming. Well, all but the really big names. And this has been covered endlessly in the mainstream press in recent years. But what really ground my gears in 2024 was Spotify's demonetization of the long tail. So it no longer pays out royalties on songs streamed less than 1,000 times. And Spotify has reportedly done this to reduce the number of sub $3 checks it has to cut. Now, I get that, but I don't think it's a good look. But let's consider it in a different context. So I don't subscribe to Reggie Watts's Spotify position. I think it's too strong, it's too extreme. But he posted something interesting on his Instagram a couple of days ago. And he essentially said that we have to stream an artist 3,000 times on Spotify to generate the same revenue as buying one album as a download or a CD for $12. And that brings us to the fifth reason I am quitting Spotify is that I think, as I've said many times before, streaming is too cheap. So if musicians are the biggest losers of the music streaming age, I think consumers are definitely the biggest winners. Now, last month I made my case that I don't think we pay enough for ongoing access to almost every song ever recorded. And if I ruled the world, Spotify and its ilk would charge at least $50 a month for ongoing access to every song in its 100 million strong library. But lower price tiers would then be offered with time limited access to selected content. So releases would come and go, just as movies and TV shows come and go on Netflix. So many of us spend the same amount of money on Spotify each month as we do on Netflix, right? But Netflix doesn't give us access to every movie ever made. It's not even close. Like, for example, Blue Velvet or The Maltese Falcon or Enter the Void are not a click away. Now, the sixth reason that I'm quitting Spotify is because of something called ghosts in the machine. Now, this is what really finally tipped me over the edge. And it's essentially an article by Liz Pelly that she wrote for Harper's Magazine as a teaser for her forthcoming book about Spotify. Now, Pelly's article I think is a must read, and I will link to it in the show notes below. But she claims that Spotify is gaming its own system by padding many popular playlists with music made by what she calls ghost musicians. So those musicians are on a flat fee payroll and they don't earn streaming royalties. So they make music that Spotify calls perfect fit content. And Spotify is allegedly swapping out normal songs on many of its biggest playlists with this perfect fit content, and therefore it doesn't have to pay out the royalties on those perfect fit content streams. Now, the way I see it, perfect fit content reduces music to filler, like an inconsequential soundtrack to another activity. Now, I know that goes on with normal music as it is, but I think it points to a sort of musical entropy where the end result is a sea of beige coloured music. And I don't want to be a part of that future. I mean, yes, music can be like wallpaper, but for me, and probably for you, it's predominantly a foreground activity. And I also think we should consider how commercial entities handle our culture. Now, you might think it hypocritical of me to quit Spotify to send even less cash in the direction of musicians each month. But you'd be wrong about that, because I still have an Apple Music account for my Apple TV and my Android smartphone, and I also use it on an iPhone 13 mini where I keep an ear on spatial audio releases. And I still subscribe to Tidal for its Connect service and its Roon integration, which Spotify does not do. But I am under no illusions here. I know that this video will not change mainstream behavior. The mainstream will always gravitate towards whatever is cheap and convenient, and Spotify is both of those things. But in 2025, I take my music consumption more seriously than ever before, and I now spend approximately $500 a month on CDs and vinyl. Now, that physical media spend is funded entirely by this channel's affiliate income. So whatever I make, I return to the system. And yes, I know this isn't a realistic amount of money for most people to spend on music, but even a few $100 spent on downloads and CDs per year is within reach of many people watching this high-end audio channel. So if you're one of those audiophiles who likes to say, I'm not an audiophile, I'm a music lover, and you know who you are, then you can probably afford a fancy hi-fi system, and then chances are you have enough cash to park Spotify and buy more CDs and more downloads. And then you could put those downloaded files and CD rips onto a Roon server. So I use something called a Roon nucleus. This is a Roon nucleus here. In the bottom of this is an SSD, and that stores my library of downloads and CD rips. But you don't have to use a nucleus. You could use any PC or Mac. And then the Roon Arc app allows you to stream anything from your Roon library to your smartphone, no matter where you are in the world. So you could say that your Roon library is like a private streaming service. And I would like to thank Roon for sponsoring this video. Anyway, if you like this video, you know what to do, and hit us up on Patreon if you'd like to support what we do here on YouTube. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching. Oh yeah, the last couple of thoughts today go out to the audiophile niche where Qobuz chatter is the liveliest. Now, I don't subscribe to Qobuz for two reasons. Now, firstly, its library isn't as comprehensive as Apple Music's or Tidal's, at least with my music taste, and I find that many albums are missing, but your mileage might vary on that one. And secondly, Qobuz has no Connect service, or if it does, it is so new that it has yet to generate much, if any, support among streaming hardware manufacturers. And lastly, if you're wondering why I'm sitting a bit awkwardly today, or why you can see some pink tape on my neck, I've really hurt my shoulder and it's all strapped up. And yeah, it's been very painful filming this video.